And just like that, training camp is almost over. I can't believe it. I can't believe that we are sitting here. It's August 19th already, and training camp is almost in the books. It's the final week of training camp. It starts, I don't think they practiced today. They had a big scrimmage yesterday, and I think Pitt football will get back to practice tomorrow. They have 3 days of practice, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then they have their walkthrough, and then the kickoff luncheon. And then that's it. It's game week next week. So, I mean, we're really, it's pretty much coming down to it here. This is the final week of training camp. Coming out of that big scrimmage yesterday, we got some of the biggest storylines heading into this final week. I think some things are probably already settled. Some are still unsettled. Either way, they're all storylines. So let's break down some of the biggest storylines facing Pitt football entering the final week of training camp to get your week started right here on the Morning Pitt. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, I hope you had a good weekend. Glad we could get things started here for you. Give a little bit of Pitt sports talk in the morning on the Morning Pitt. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You know what we always ask you to do. Like this video and subscribe. YouTube.com/Panther-Lair.com so you don't miss any of our Pitt video content. We have these morning Pitt videos every day for you. A little bit of Pitt sports talk to get your day started. We have our weekly live show that we do every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Me and Jim Hammock get together and talk a little Pitt sports with you. And then we have practice highlights, we have video interviews, press conferences, all kinds of things, post-game shows, everything right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You want to make sure you don't miss it. Like this video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also turn on notifications so you get an alert sent to your phone every time we go live or we post a new video, whatever it is. If you want to make sure you don't miss any of our Pitt video content, subscribe and turn on notifications, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And then, of course, make sure you check out the website, Panther-Lair.com. Pittsburgh.rivals.com is the website. That's where we have all of our Pitt sports coverage, football, basketball, and recruiting. You can find it all at Panther-Lair.com and message boards to talk to other Pitt fans all day, every day. Pitt fans are talking on the Panther-Lair.com message boards about Pitt sports. So if you're a Pitt fan, you like to talk to other Pitt fans, the best place to do it is Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. And let me tell you, we got something special going for you right now, and it's only this week. You can get 60% off the first year of an annual subscription at Panther-Lair.com. You want to sign up, you want to get the best Pitt sports coverage as training camp comes to an end and the season starts. I mean, this is when all the action is happening. It's football season. You need to go to Panther-Lair.com right now and sign up with the promo code KICKOFF2024. That's KICKOFF 2024. No spaces or anything like that. You can put all the letters in caps. Kickoff 2024. You get 60% off the first year of your annual subscription if you sign up right now just this week using promo code KICKOFF2024. Kickoff 2024. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Promo code KICKOFF2024. All right, Pitt will be kicking off the 2024 season in less than 2 weeks against Kent State at Acrisure Stadium on August 31st, and we're all looking forward to that. And looking ahead, I saw Kent State named its starting quarterback, or maybe Pete Thamel or somebody reported that Kent State was naming their starting quarterback. A real jokester on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com put up a post that said, starting quarterback named for the Kent State game. Ha, ha, ha. It's the Kent State quarterback, not the Pitt quarterback, because that is one of the big storylines that we're following in this final week of training camp. Nate Yarnell and Eli Holstein. We talked about this a lot last week, the developing quarterback competition, or the continuing quarterback competition, the battle between Holstein and Yarnell. Yarnell is the returning starter, the guy who started the final 2 games of last season, which makes him the returning starter. Holstein, the challenger, the redshirt freshman who transferred in from Alabama. Holstein has the pedigree. Yarnell has the experience. And there are a few other differences between them that we'll obviously talk about. We've been talking about and we'll continue talking about. I don't know if yesterday's scrimmage settled anything between those two guys. I said going into the weekend, I said this scrimmage is going to determine who the starting quarterback is. I don't know. I don't know if there was enough separation found, and I think we might see this team go into game week maybe with Nate Yarnell named as a starter, but with a pretty good likelihood that both quarterbacks will play in the Kent State game, and we'll see who kind of seizes the job under the lights. That doesn't mean that they played poorly in the scrimmage yesterday. It's just that, if we were looking for separation there, I'm not sure if it necessarily occurred. We'll see what Pat Narduzzi has to say when he talks to the media tomorrow before Pitt's practice in the morning. Jim Hammond will be down there covering that. So we'll have lots of coverage at Panther-Lair.com. But that's one of the big storylines. I mean, obviously, the quarterback situation is always going to be a big storyline, particularly when you have a competition going on like Pitt does right now. I wouldn't call it a quarterback controversy. I think if you get into the season, like last year, Pitt had multiple quarterback controversies. I think once you get into the season and everyone can see what's happening, then it's a controversy. For now, it's just a competition. And the competition between Yarnell and Holstein has become one of the biggest storylines in training camp. Probably it's become a bigger storyline than we thought it was going to be when training camp started. Thought Eli Holstein would give Nate Yarnell a push. Thought he would challenge him for the job, but thought Nate Yarnell would hold on to the job. That seems less likely now, even if it's probably still the most likely outcome. But Holstein has made it interesting, to be sure. I'm not ruling out the possibility of him ultimately earning the starting job, but he's right there with Yarnell, and I think that competition is going to continue. And that'll be, a major storyline for the final week of training camp. It'll be a major storyline for the first week of game prep, and it'll be a major storyline for the first game of the season. This will be a big storyline until it really gets settled on one guy or the other. And quite frankly, even at that point, it'll probably continue being a huge storyline, because if Eli Holstein wins the job and, he throws a couple interceptions in a game, well, Nate Yarnell in his career threw 76 passes and only one pick. Conversely, if Nate Yarnell wins the job and he doesn't do a great job escaping the pocket or doesn't make big plays downfield, well, those are some of the things Eli Holstein's supposed to be good at. So it's entirely likely the controversy and competition will continue into the season, or the competition will become a controversy as the season moves on. But for now, it's just quarterback competition. That's not the worst thing. You like those guys to be pushing each other. You just would like someone to sort of establish himself as the number one guy and take the job into the season. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. We'll see what develops over the course of the next 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks, really. Another storyline that I think is a prominent one, and it's one we've talked about in different terms and different ways over the, obviously the last 3 weeks and then throughout the offseason. But it's really about the offensive weapons. And I've raised questions. I have some big questions. It's sort of the there's a lot of questions about this offense, right? But one of the questions continuously has been about the offensive skill players, particularly the running backs and the receivers. Less uncertain about the running backs than we are about the receivers. I think, we've continually asked that question of who's the number one receiver on this team? Do they have a big time number one alpha receiver who can be the man? And I'm still not sure if they do. But I will say that as camp has progressed, I've gotten progressively more bullish on the offensive skill players. And that's at running back and wide receiver. I mean, you already know what I think about the tight ends, or at least you know what I think about Gavin Bartholomew. But as far as the running backs and receivers go, I think those positions are coming into a bit of clarity, and I think there are some signs of optimism. I think there's some signs to be encouraged about those guys a little bit. In particular, I think some of the Western Carolina guys are really looking intriguing from what we've heard and what we've kind of seen a little bit of. There's some promising potential, some playmaking potential with those guys, with the explosiveness, with Desmond Reed, the running back, who got a ton of touches and was really productive at Western Carolina in 8 games last season. With Raphael Poppy Williams, the wide receiver, who was Western Carolina's leading receiver, 3 years ago. Then he was the second leading receiver 2 years ago, transferred to San Diego State last year, and now he's back playing in this offensive scheme again. It's a scheme where he has succeeded. He's done really well in the 2 years that he played in it, actually more, because he was with Cade Bell at Tusculum. I still can't pronounce that. Tusculum. And so he's played in this offense. He's excelled in this offense. He knows the offense, and I think he's doing a good job in camp, kind of showing that he can be a contributor and a playmaker. I think Sincere Lee is right there too. That I think all three of those guys who came in with experience in the offense, with clear explosiveness and speed and quickness, not a lot of height for any of the three of them, but pretty much all the other aspects you would like to see. Some physicality, some toughness, particularly out of Desmond Reed, and just playmaking ability. And so I'm coming around more and more on the idea of those guys really being involved. Because, look, there was a point, probably January, where I was like, okay, this is nice that Cade Bell's bringing along his, Western Carolina All-Stars, but, I mean, let's be real here. This is going to be the Rodney Hammond and Konate Mumfield and Kenny Johnson show. Now, I mean, still think it's going to be the Rodney Hammond, Konate Mumfield, and Kenny Johnson show, but it's also that's going to be part of a show that also includes Desmond Reed, Sincere Lee, and Poppy Williams. And I still haven't decided if I want to, formally commit to calling him Poppy or if I want to stick to the more formal Raphael. Nevertheless, I think those guys are going to have a role in this offense, and I think they're going to play a lot, and I think they're going to make plays. I really do. I think they're going to do some impressive things. And I'm looking forward to seeing them. I'm looking forward to seeing them in an actual game. Looking forward to seeing them play against players wearing a different uniform, even if it's just Kent State. I'm looking forward to seeing what Desmond Reed can do and how Desmond Reed is used. And even more so, I'm looking forward to week 2 at Cincinnati to really get a sense of how Desmond Reed is going to be used and how Williams and Lee are going to fit into this offense alongside Mumfield, Johnson, and Dejon Reynolds. I'm coming around on that group a little bit. I need to see it happen. I need to see it work. I need to see those smaller FCS guys show that they are, legit ACC players. I have no reason not to believe it. I just need to see the transition actually take place to buy in. But on the whole, I think there are some indications as the arrows are pointing up with those guys. So I think that's going to be exciting to watch. The other position that's sort of up in the air, the other storyline on offense is the center position. It seems like the 2 tackle spots and the 2 guard spots are more or less set. Terrence Moore and Lyndon Cooper continue to battle. Moore, in this case, the returning starter. Cooper, the transfer. This guy, in this case, he's coming in from NC State, having played center and guard with the Wolfpack, but really sort of committing himself to center at Pitt, battling with Terrence Moore, and even at times throughout camp, and even at times recently looking like he's ahead in that battle with Terrence Moore. I thought Terrence Moore would be like one of the anchors of this offensive line, one of the linchpins, and a key guy on the offensive line. Like I thought the big competition was going to be at left guard. Well, unbeknownst to me, Lyndon Cooper really committed himself to center and has been battling there. And I, if the first game of the season was played on Saturday, August 17th, as opposed to Saturday, August 31st, I think Lyndon Cooper might have been the starter at center. And that might have been your starting lineup of left to right, Branson Taylor, Ryan Jacoby, Lyndon Cooper, B.J. Williams, and Ryan Baer. That's sort of how it's looking. Now, could something change over the next 2 weeks? It could, but I think Cooper might be the front runner for that center spot. You flip over to the other side of the ball. I mean, the storylines continue to be what they've been throughout camp. That big question mark across the defensive front. Throughout. I mean, we talked so much about the defensive line before training camp started. As camp progressed, I started getting a little more and more bullish on the defensive tackles, more so than the defensive ends. I'm still kind of there, even though, I mean, there's very much a prove-it element with all of these guys, really, across the board on the defensive line. That certainly applies to the tackles. But I'm getting more and more intrigued by the ends. Maybe it's just like, this is what happens over the course of training camp. You sit around for, when did it start? The 31st of July. So you're now, 20 days into camp, almost 3 full weeks into training camp. And, at a certain point, you talk yourself into thinking that just about every position is heading in the right direction. Just because it's just, it's like camp brain. You know what I mean? You get training camp brain, and you start talking yourself into it. So I start talking myself into, I've sort of been talked into Nate Matlack for a while. But you start talking yourself into this Chief Borders guy is really intriguing. He sure does look the part. This might be a guy who can really do something. And boy, Sincere Edwards, one of the best freshman defensive linemen they've brought in here in quite some time. One of the best freshman defensive ends in quite some time. And hey, Jimmy Scott, I think he's a nice player, man. I sort of wary of New York football, but I think he's a nice player. He might be pretty good out there. Hey, you talk yourself into it. They're not especially deep because they really can't go beyond those 4 guys that I just mentioned, Matlack and Borders and Scott and Edwards. But you start talking yourself into it a little bit. You're like, you know what? I don't know. They might be able to play a little bit. They just might. But that's, we'll see. That's one of the biggest storylines. That might be. I mean, the quarterback is always like low-hanging fruit for a storyline, but in terms of what's going to really impact the team this season, and obviously the quarterback position is going to have a huge impact on the team this season, but the defensive line and what happens with the defensive line and how those guys develop and progress and who plays and how they play, like that all is going to loom so large over what this team does this season, because they can be better at outside linebacker, and I think they will be. I think they can be better defending the perimeter from those spots, but you still need that push up front. You need that push up front whether you defend against the run or the pass. And, Pitt's going to be relying on 8 guys, 9 guys maybe, who really haven't done it at all. Who we really don't know what they can do. And it's going to be, I think it's wildly fascinating. And, hopefully it doesn't turn into, horribly terrifying or horribly ineffective or something like that. But it's going to be really fascinating to see how those guys do up front. And then the other big unresolved position, there's actually 2 I would go to. The biggest other unresolved position is the cornerback rotation. Like we've said, pretty much since the start of camp, it's Riley and Gandy, and then it's everybody else. The top part of everybody else includes Rashad Battle and Tamon Lynam. It seems like it's like Gandy, Battle and Lynam, and then everybody else after that. There's sort of tiers. Tier 1 is Gandy, Tier 2 is Battle and Lynam, and then Tier 3 is the rest of the group. And not to say that the rest of the group is not good. I think the 2 redshirt freshmen, Shadarian Harrison and Jeremiah Anglin, the transfer from Kentucky, I think they're both going to be really good. I think the coaches are excited about them. I don't know if they're going to be ready to play this year or not, though. So that remains to be seen. But I could see them sticking with a 3-man rotation. Ideally, the Kent State game allows you to get 4 or 5 or 6 guys out there throughout the course of the afternoon. But I could see them boiling down to a 3-man rotation with Gandy, Battle, and Lynam. And we'll see if anybody else emerges to jump up into that group. So it's, again, and that's been one of the storylines since the beginning. Felt good about Gandy, wondered who would step up to play opposite him. And I think we're seeing Battle and Lynam, and then see who else. I tell you, safety is an interesting position too. And this will be the last one I would point to as far as storylines. It's a storyline for this week, but it's a storyline. It's going to be interesting to watch what this safety rotation looks like. I don't see Donovan McMillan coming off the field very often, but the reality is PJ O'Brien's a playmaker. I mean, I think he had 3 interceptions last year. He's got at least 4 or 5 takeaways in training camp, and that was as of Thursday, the last time I was down there. Jim covered on Friday, and we haven't been down since then. He's got 4 takeaways already in camp. He's a playmaker. And I don't think he's looking to be the 3rd man in the rotation again this year. I don't know if he's going to beat out Javon McIntyre, but I think he's going to battle him. I think he's going to try, and I think he's going to push him. And then you got Cruz Brookins pushing everybody, trying to jump ahead of PJ O'Brien in the rotation, trying to push his way ahead of McIntyre for a starting spot. I think it's going to be really, really interesting to see what kind of pairings they put out there, what kind of rotation they use, how often they rotate, who starts. I mean, it could change week to week. I think McMillan, like I say, is sort of a mainstay, but I think you could see a lot of different pairings put together to start games and over the course of the game. So safety is sort of a low-key position of high interest. Yeah, I think it's a position with a lot of confidence. It's a position that I think a lot of us believe will be pretty good. But also, I think there's some storylines there, and it could be interesting to see, who starts and what the rotation looks like in game 1, and who starts and what the rotation looks like in game 2. Or, excuse me, game 12. I mean, obviously, game 2 is going to be really interesting too. But it's going to be really interesting to see if they use the same starting lineup and same rotation in game 12 that they use in game 1. Not so sure. It might change over the course of the season, but I think they're going to get really good play out of those positions, and they'll rotate because guys are pushing each other, not necessarily because somebody is slacking or falling off. But either way, I think it's going to be really interesting to watch. I think safety will be, like I say, sort of low-key, a really fascinating position over the course of this season. All right. Practice will start again tomorrow. We'll have lots of coverage for you at Panther-Lair.com. Don't forget, promo code KICKOFF2024, all one word, KICKOFF 2024 will get you 60% off an annual subscription to Panther-Lair.com. You're getting the best Pitt sports coverage, and you're only paying 40% of what we would typically charge you. Do the math on that. You can't lose. It's like super cheap. I don't even know how much that works out to. I don't want to know because we're giving it away. We're basically giving it away for free. So if you want to get the best Pitt sports coverage as the season gets underway, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com is the place to go to get it. And the promo code KICKOFF2024 is the way to get it for cheap. So do it. Tell a friend. We'll see you on the message boards. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Hope you had a great weekend and your Monday gets your week off to a great start. We'll catch up with you tomorrow morning for the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.